Maryland Governor Wes Moore, potential presidential candidate, even though he says he won't run, was on Fox and Friends this morning. I wonder how that booking came about. I'm sure they have a standing offer for Wes Moore to be on Fox and Friends whenever he wants. Why did they offer today? Why did he accept? Who knows? But here's Wes Moore talking about crime in his city and his state.
But you don't like the actions that the president is taking right now. Why?
Well, you know, when I came in, I said that the number one priority that we had as administration was to make sure that our communities were safe. You know, before I became governor, for the 8 years before I became the governor, Baltimore City went 8 straight years of 300 plus homicides. The year before I became the governor, Baltimore City averaged about a homicide a day. And I said, I refuse to be a governor who's going to spend my time offering eulogies and giving thoughts and prayers, that we actually need to have resources and coordination that was going to help to fundamentally address the problem. As people of my state have learned, you know, I don't come from a political background. My background is I'm a soldier. And so what we did was we made historic investments in local law enforcement, that we invested over $50 million in the Baltimore City Police Department alone, that we made historic investments in technologies and predictive analytics, and saying if someone commits a violent crime, particularly with a firearm, I want them in handcuffs in 24 hours. And saying that we made historic investments in our community groups, working with the mayor, working with our county executives, working with the community groups and our violence intervention and violence interruption groups, to making sure we can stop crime before it happens and making sure we don't have this retaliatory cycle of violence.
I'm going to take the liberty of speaking for all three of us and saying that was a kick-ass answer. None of us could take any exception with the strength of that in style and substance and demeanor and everything else. Sean, which Democrats, and if you want to say more, which Democrats do you think doing a good job of responding to the situation in D.C.?
I think so too. I think Wes Moore's probably doing the best, and I still don't think it was great. But because again, I agree with more of Dan. I would have said, look, you know, these are areas where we can come together. Crime and safety isn't a political issue. It's something that Republicans, Democrats, Independents all agree on. I mean, like, I will say if you're grading on a curve, he's the best. I also think that Mayor Bowser has done a pretty decent job of not being completely reflexive in her hate towards Trump. She's been talking about working with him. I will say it was mind-blowing that the chief of police yesterday couldn't answer the question of what chain of command was.
Yes.
That's pretty scary. But Mayor Bowser has done a good job of laying out the authority. She's walked through the law, the DC charter, what home rule is, what authority she has and doesn't have. I think she's been, for a Democrat in responding, handled this in a fairly smart way.
Dan.
Yeah, I agree. I'll just add, those who have been quiet, you don't hear Whitmer, Shapiro, Bashir saying anything, which to me is smart. Like, if you don't want to, you know, don't bash them. They probably agree with him. They will have to address this. But I think it's that they're smart. And actually, I'll add that, you know, Wes Moore did kind of follow that playbook of saying, let's talk about a permanent solution. How are we going to get this down over the next 5 to 10 years? And you heard the kind of, I think, a smart way, and he didn't take the bait. He did not hammer Trump. And that, to me, that is really smart. You're not boxing yourself in, because this is probably going to be successful. So why go on the record?
I will say this. The one thing that's lurking in the back of, I'll put it to you, Dan, but I've got to imagine in the back of every Democrat's head is, oh, wait a second. 18 months ago, I bashed the heck out of the police. I said they should be defunded. They were horrible people. We should be sending out social workers. So now suddenly to be talking about being tough on crime, at some point, that ping pong back and forth between your positions on crime and your party for most of these leaders is not strong.
Well, I think, look, most of these people we're talking about did not call for defunding the police, right? The AOCs of the world, the Bernie Sanders, yes. Look, this is where, again, Trump derangement syndrome, you keep hearing Democrats going back to January 6th, right? Which I think, to me, is just like, God, stop pulling at that Band-Aid. Like, stop trying to relitigate that. But I think that's, you know, where people in our party say, all right, we weren't great and defund the police. Yep. Trump was terrible with that. You know,
want more great clips like that? I've got an idea. Hit the subscribe button, be part of the two-way community, never miss a clip, And you can always watch our full episodes, join them live, go to twoway.tv.